you good with this? Are you excited about this?
Absolutely. I will talk about anything.
And you know what? I'm kind of glad you brought it up. Like I said, you and I talked about this before we went on, and I think, right now, anger. There's a lot of anger around the country. There isn't for those again. Sean and I are going to dip our toe lightly into this because we know this is probably going to set some people off. But obviously, everybody knows there's an election in November. We are voting for a new president come November. And again, this is not whatever your politics is. That's not what this is. We're not talking about that right now. This is not in terms of which party you're for, who you're voting for. I don't want to know any of that right now. That's not the subject of this. But the anger that comes from both sides on what's happening in the country really speaks to a bigger issue about, to me, respect. Because, again, I don't have to agree with everything you do.
Right.
Like, I don't have to agree, and I don't have to agree with your politics.
Right.
But if you treat me with respect, I'm going to treat you the same way.
Absolutely.
And the amount of anger you see on people, again, I have Facebook and I have friends on both sides of the aisle. And I read posts and I look at stuff and you know how people are feeling. You know the temperature.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of angry people out there on both sides. People who don't like Biden, people who don't like Trump, everything that's happening, yada, yada, yada. And I think the unfortunate part is sometimes we can't see past our own beliefs, things.
Right.
Like if you don't agree with me, I need to be upset with you. And I really think that's what divides people that way. And that's why people get into arguments about politics and fights about this. And I get it.
Right.
We're not going to agree on everything. We're all raised differently. We all have different backgrounds. We all have different ways of thinking. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I have really good friends who are on both sides of the aisle. And the one thing I avoid with them as much as I can is political discussion. Because, again, I'll respect you if you respect me. Now, again, I'm not telling you which side of the aisle I'm on, and I'm not going to get into that. If you want to ask me privately and we're that close, I'll discuss it with you. But I'm not going to do it here. But I'm just letting you know that, to me, that's anger on a different level. And it's really a shame to see because I've seen people literally not talk to each other or decide that I don't want to deal with you anymore because you don't agree with what I agree with.
Right.
And I'm just going to say this, whether you think this is a correct statement or not, the fact that we let politicians who claim they have our best interests at heart, but maybe don't always, separate us as people who have to live together, work together, and be together, I think that's terrible. Because I do think it's very divisive. It does divide us, and that's a shame. Because you know what? We're here on the ground floor together. Like, nobody I know is super well off where that this doesn't affect them in some way.
Right.
Well, whatever side you're on. We all go to work. We all pay our rent. We all pay our bills. We all do whatever. The anger part of this really bothers me because, again,
I feel
the lack of respect that people have for each other all of a sudden, like, you know what I mean? The lack of whatever it is, compassion, understanding. Again, you could, oh, Nick, you're, you.
No,
you drink,
but
you drink, but it is. I mean, it's terrible.
It's the truth. It's the
that
truth.
people don't know how to talk to each other and
No.
can't understand that differences are honestly what make us great as people. If everybody was the same, I think life would be really boring.
Right.
If we all thought the same, if we all did the same thing, if we all wore the same clothes, we all did this, we all did that, life would just suck. We just exist and nothing would happen. But again, I just feel like right now the anger in this country for this whole thing, this whole election, it's very sad. And again, that kind of grinds my gears because I feel like people don't respect each other, and people are willing to just name call and be like, oh, well, you're this, you're that, blah blah. How can you defend Trump? How can you defend Biden? How can you do this? How can you do that? I've heard the argument. Trust me. Like I said, if you look at my Facebook page, it's a cornucopia of stuff, man. I get all sides. I get all angles. People are, like I said, I know people on both sides of the aisle. It's terrible.
And that's the problem. And a lot of it is because everybody feels like they have the answer. Everybody feels like they know. And one of the things that really angers me, and I'm staying on this line, but also in the other thing that we talk about all the time, which is football, is when you have people that are not willing to admit a fault of the person that they're supporting.
Yeah.
Be it football, be it, I've known people that have looked at coaches who have openly said that they have done stuff. They've openly said that, yes, I had this infraction or whatever. This is should be suspended, but whatever, what have you. And these people are like, no, this is fabricated, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And that is the big thing for me, because going to your point on politics, one of the things that I've always been taught by my father, who was big into politics, but also big into media. He said to pay attention, start looking at both sides. If anybody ever tells you that this side is 100% great and there's nothing wrong with them, that's when you keep your eye on them the most. You know what I mean? And it's not saying that this side isn't awful, but you have to realize that there is nobody that is perfect. There's nobody that's pure and blameless. So what really frustrates me is on both sides, that both sides attempt to be this blameless, pure, like, party that we are this and we're that and we're great. And then you have people in our society, we deal with it every day, Nick, that will defend one side or the other, saying they are terribly bad and they are terribly bad. I'm going to tell you something right now, and it is not going to be a popular comment, but Trump has done some really good things for this country, and Biden has as well. And Trump has done some really bad things for this country, and Biden has as well. And that's just what it is. Because we need to understand that the man that might be up there is not just up there by himself. A lot of times he's backed by all these groups and countries, or not countries, but entities that have their own agenda at heart.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things my dad taught me when I was very young, everybody, and I mean everybody, has an MO. An MO, for those of you who don't know, is a motive.
Modus operandi.
Yes. Exactly. Yes. Everybody has a motive. Everybody wants to get their agenda across and whatnot. Yeah. And the worst thing about it is the lack of desire to want to know the truth, and the lack of desire to want to hear from both sides and figure it out in your head. This is what the truth is. And just a lot of people in this country on both sides would rather just live in the naive, the ignorance is bliss mindset, just so they don't, like you were saying, just so they don't have to ruffle the feathers, just so I can be just, okay, go along, get along. You know what I mean? And and I am not going to be on this with you and lie to you guys and say that I have not done that. I have made a life.
I've done it plenty of times. Yeah, right. I've done it plenty of times. I just told you I'm very agreeable, right? I just told you that, right?
You know what I mean? And so with that, I'm not sitting here and saying that I'm not, I'm free from blame. But what I am saying, though, is we are in a point in this country that is very volatile, where you got people on one side talking about, civil war. You got people on another side, obviously, the president potentially got shot. All this stuff that's out here, and our minds are so it's this side or that side, this or that, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, dude, you do not realize that we need it all? We need everybody to come together for this to work. We are we are so susceptible to any type of attack. If the West wanted to really gang up and get together and they can get their stuff together, they can easily whop us, because we're so divided, and it's not even that hard to be that divided. So for me, that is a frustration of mine, because it's more than an annoyance, and it is borderline on anger, because for me, it means a lot more.
Welcome to Truth Be Told, where honestly, it's in the name.